Hey there guys, gltichxcity here with your tier 2 video. Sorry it's been a little while, life's been a little busy and hectic, but we are back. I'm going to break down our tier 2 here at the Pokemon Champions League for our draft league. Let you know what's I think is good and count down my top tier 2 mons. So without further ado, let's begin. This is our tier 2. Right now we're kind of prepping for season 3. So you'll see a few different colors on here. The dark orange ones are ones that we're moving, and so far nobody's complained. People think they're good moves, so we're going to move those. The yellow ones are ones that need to be voted on. Howlucha moving from tier 1 and Darmanitan moving back up from tier 3 possibly. We're going to vote on those, see how they go. There's a few things missing on here that are going to still be voted on. So for tier 1, we might be moving Serperior and Terrakion. And because those are still going to be voted on, I'm going to be adding them onto my top list this time. They'll be for the tier 2, because we don't know exactly which way they're going to go. I think of the two, Serperior has a better chance of moving up to tier 1, since we've seen this season just how good it can be. But, I mean, it's still up in the air. So I'm going to include them on the tier 2 video and not the tier 1 video. I will be including anything else on here, though, in the tier 2 video. So what is tier 2? Why is it so important? So honestly, when you're building your team for draft, I think tier 2 is arguably the most important tier. This is where you spend most of your free points. These are the ones that are really going to help your team the most. Like, you'll get 1 or 2 tier 1s, yes, and it's good to build your team around those, but this is where you really build your team around those and get what you need for your team to just really build a strong team. So it's super important to look really hard into tier 2 as to what you need. And it's really going to, like, decide the direction that you want to go with your team. Everything in here is very strong. Very strong, just not quite as strong as the tier 1s, which are your heavy hitters, but it's just super important. I can't stress enough how good tier 2 is, and important to make sure you pick the right things for your team. So without further ado, I'm going to break down my top 25 this time. There were so many in this tier that I love that I couldn't do just 20, so we're moving it up again to my top 25. We're going to start with one of the best bulky water types. People might not agree with me on where I'm putting it at 25, but I think it's a good spot. Toxapex. So Toxapex is a new Pokemon to Gen 7. He is insanely bulky. The defense and special defense on this guy is so great. He only has a couple weaknesses, which makes him very valuable. He's slow and passive, but so good. He has Recover. Anytime a bulky water type has Recover, that's really OP. He gets Regenerator, which is an insane ability. Toxic and Toxic Spikes, obviously both really great. Baneful Bunker, everyone loves that move. It's such a great little guessing game if you're going to use it or not. He gets Haze, Magic Coat, even Knockoff. God, Knockoff really is just such a strong move in draft to get rid of your opponent's items. And then Light Screen, I think Toxapex would be a little better if we also had Reflect. If you could run screens Toxapex, I think that would be an insane Pokemon. So Light Screen, though, still helps them, especially if you're facing Pokemon that bring Electric or Psychic moves. Those are usually special moves, so Light Screen's going to help you a lot there. The only problem I have with Toxapex as far as bulky waters, his weaknesses are pretty common in draft. Ground especially. Earthquake is rampant. Everybody's got a good Earthquake user usually. Electric types, most people draft good electric types, like we've already covered. Jolteon in tier 3 is super good. Galvantula in tier 3. There's a couple tier 2s. There's Coco in tier 1. There's so many good electric types that can really give Toxapex a hard time. And Psychic types, most people draft a Psychic. They're just super good. Super good, but besides the kind of common weaknesses, I mean, Toxapex is just a great addition to any team. What he does is good, and his bulk is just crazy. So the next one, number 24, is one that we are dropping from tier 1, but it has really proved itself. I do agree that it shouldn't be tier 1, it should be tier 2, but it's really proved that it can make the top kill list, it can be fairly versatile and just a really solid Pokemon, and that is Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales is a really fun Pokemon. It's a pretty unique typing, and I didn't think it would be that good. I know Aurora Veil is good, but honestly, when people use Alolan Ninetales, they haven't been using Aurora Veil as much. They've been using like Specs, maybe Scarf, but I think Specs really gives it that special attack help. I've seen someone run a Nasty Plot set that just devastated a team. It gets Heal Bell and Roar as some utility coverage. It gets Psyshock and Dark Pulse, also great moves. Its stats don't look great, but I just couldn't believe just how well it does and how ill-prepared people seem to be for Alolan Ninetales. So it had to make my list. I think it's so great. Its coverage is decent enough. It's got really good ice moves. You bring Blizzard, you're guaranteed to hit with the Hail. And again, Aurora Veil is super strong. Maybe people don't bring it because the Aurora Veil is really predictable. So people try to counter it. And you bring other sets and it throws people off. Watch out for Bullet Punch. Obviously, any Steel move is just going to destroy Alolan Ninetales, and Steels are everywhere, so when you bring Ninetales, make sure you've got something that can handle Steel. Super, super important. But Alolan Ninetales, solid Pokemon. Alright, number 23, we're going with Ferrothorn, moved down from Tier 1 this season. And he did get picked now that he's in Tier 2, and he's really, really good, just like he is in competitive Smogon. Solid defense. I mean, you look at his defense, special defense, he's bulky. Very bulky and very, very nice typing. Steel Grass, obviously he's only got one weakness, and that is fire. He sets Spikes, he sets Stealth Rocks, he has Leech Seed, he has Knockoff. I've always stressed Knockoff. Such a good move to run in draft. Gyro Ball and Power Whip, obviously a really strong 94 attack that hits pretty hard. Swords Dance or Curse. Ferrothorn gets both. You can run that. You can try to sweep with Ferrothorn, throw it on a Trick Room team even. He doesn't just have to be defensive, throw some curveballs at your opponent. And I think that's enough to put him definitely in my top 25. He definitely surprised me. I was beaten by Ferrothorn this season because I'm running Mega Swampert on a rain team. Ferrothorn was really hard to handle. I will be facing that person again, and I hope I'll be able to make a little bit of a comeback. But Ferrothorn, if you need to fill out a Steel Fairy Dragon Core or a Grass Fire Water Core, Ferrothorn's a go-to. He can fill both, and it's just super solid. Really great moves. Number 22, we're going with a mon that we are moving down, again, from Tier 1, Xurkitree. So Xurkitree is a very, very straightforward Pokemon, which I think is why we're moving him down, but that does not make him bad. Just like Blacephalon, it's really predictable. He runs pretty much one, maybe two sets. With the Xurkitree, there's two. You either go Scarf, which is good. He's got the speed. He can outspeed Excadrill even. With that speed on a Scarf, 173 special attack is just insane. But you can also run a Tail Glow set if you're not too worried about the outspeeding. Tail Glow is really strong. He can run Z moves too, as a little nuke if your opponent doesn't have anything that can kill it in one hit. He gets Grass Knot, Dazzling Gleam, and Signal Beam. Decent coverage, probably not the best, but I mean, you can throw any hidden power on Xurkitree and he'll be fantastic. You can tech him for whatever you need. So as far as a special attack cleaner, Xurkitree is great, but just know if you pick Xurkitree, it's going to be predictable. Your opponent's going to have an answer, but if you take out that answer, Xurkitree is going to get a lot of kills. So definitely worth picking up and a good Pokemon to just have on a team. I like Xurkitree and I love his design. I hope I get him in some draft. Really strong. Next up, number 21, Crocodile. This is a Pokemon I had Season 1 and he did phenomenal. So I had to bring him in here. Intimidate and Moxie, I think, are the selling points for Crocodile. Really good abilities. Intimidate is obviously really strong in draft. Being able to stop your opponent's physical attackers is nice. Force them to switch out. You can start putting some pressure on. And then Moxie, obviously, if you can get Crocodile in to kill something, you're going to start rolling through their team. He's got 117 attack, which is great. 92 speed. That's pretty good. Usually people will run Scarf, but I think with 92 speed, it's not 100% necessary. It depends on the team you're fighting. He can Pursuit Trap Psychic types, which is nice. Stealth Rock and Taunt for utility. A lot of people run Stealth Rock on him. It's really strong. His coverage is pretty good. Aqua Tail, Dragon Tail, Fire Fang, Thunder Fang, Outrage, Stone Edge, Power Up Punch, Superpower. I think all of those are great. I do wish Crocodile had Ice Fang. The lack of an ice move sometimes is what kind of put him at 21 for me. He'd be a lot higher if he got ice coverage. Just Ice Fang, that would probably be a little broken maybe. Maybe people would think that's too strong, but I would really like to see Ice Fang on Crocodile. I think that would be great. But really strong Pokemon, great abilities. Yeah, just really good. We'll move on to number 20. Sorry about that. Scizor. So Scizor is the OG Metal Bug. Scizor is super strong. Everyone already knows this. He's usually a pretty high meta Pokemon. Everyone really likes using him. Technician priority. With his typing, I think he's better than Breloom. Breloom sadly did not make the list. Scizor did. I think he's a little better, and that's not just because of the Technician priority. That Bullet Punch, I think, might have a little better coverage than Mach Punch, but he gets U-turn and knockoff. Great moves. He can pivot out, and he can knock stuff off. He gets Roost and Defog, so he can stay alive. You can build a bulky set with that Hunter defense with Roost, and then use him as a Defogger. Anytime your Defogger is not weak to Stealth Rock, that's really strong. Sword Dance, Banded for offensive sets, really good. His coverage, Superpower, Night Slash, he gets Pursuit. You can run Acrobatics. There's not much really to say about Scizor. Everyone that's played competitive Pokemon knows Scizor is good. Very good. Fire is bad. Just like with Ferrothorn, you get rid of anything they're running with fire, you're good to go. That's why Scizor's not quite as far on our list. If you know your opponent has it, bring plenty of fire coverage and you're probably pretty set. But I think Scizor does surprise people a lot and it's really strong. Definitely a great offensive Pokemon to put on your team. Next up, we've got Komo-o, one of the better dragon types in the tier. Finally a fighting dragon type. Everyone's been wanting one for a long time. He gets Dragon Dance or Sword Dance or Belly Drum or Autotomize. So he has a lot of setup options. Dragon Dance, arguably the best one. Belly Drum can probably surprise your opponent a lot. 85 speed is good, not bad. Not great, but good. Good enough that you could run a Belly Drum set to clean up if you've got rid of their really fast Pokemon. He's got great stab. He has really good coverage. Roar, Taunt as good utility. He gets all the elemental punches. That already like solidifies his coverage. You can run what you need. Rock Slide and Earthquake. That's obviously really strong. Not quite as good as Stone Edge, but Rock Slide's enough. I think with his attack power, if you get a setup. Iron Head. Great tech for fairies. Obviously, he can take out fairies with Iron Hand or Poison Jab if they're running Bulu. Aqua Tail, Scizor, he's got lots of coverage. Really strong Pokemon. Really, really strong. Very, very offensive. So it's hard to really run him differently than that. He's got the defense, though. You could run him a little bulky if you needed to run him as a taunt user, maybe. But I think with his moves, he's going to be offensive, so people will be a little prepared for that. I don't think Fighting type helps him defensively. He's still going to have some weaknesses. It just adds, I think, Flying type and Psychic as weaknesses. So definitely not the strongest defensive type. But if you're able to get a setup move off, Komo is going to go wild. But if your opponent can stop the setup, probably not as good. I still think he's definitely worth his spot on here. Really strong. I think the stats itself sell him alone. Really strong stats. Great pseudo-legendary. Great Pokemon. 18, Rotom Wash. I know some people were probably thinking this was a lot higher on the list, but I do think there's better bulky water types than Rotom Wash. But he's still making my list. He's in the top 20. Bulky utility. He can do quite a bit. Levitate is really nice. He has one weakness. Grass type. That's really strong. Slow Volt Switch is always a nice thing to have. Give yourself some momentum. Will-O-Wisp can really cripple teams if your opponent doesn't prep for it. I do think overall Rotom Wash is a little predictable with his sets. He doesn't run too much, but he's still really powerful. His stats are great. Hydro Pump hits pretty hard. You can run an electric move. Again, Will-O-Wisp and Volt Switch is a really nice tech. He gets Defog, which is great. He's just a great utility Pokemon that fits on any team that really needs that bulky water type. Just added onto their team. Everyone knows Rotom Wash is good. He's in OU. Great Pokemon, but predictable. And again, versatility is what makes things maybe a little better in draft. But I mean, his power is still there. He's still really good. Definitely worth a pick if the good bulky waters have been taken. 17 is Cobalion. Cobalion has very strong typing. I love the typing. Swords Dance and Calm Mind. You can run either 90 special attack. As long as you get a Calm Mind off, he's going to do something. Swords Dance might be a little stronger because you get the +2. But he's so much more than just a setup sweeper. Stealth Rock, Taunt, and Thunder Wave are insane utility options, especially Stealth Rock. Stealth Rock is really good to have on your team. Volt Switch, I don't understand how Cobalion has Volt Switch, but he does, so he's got a lot of pressure he can build there. Great stab moves, obviously. He gets Poison Jab and Stone Edge to kind of round some of that out. Not the greatest coverage, though, but his typing is great. I mean, Steel and Fighting is going to hit most things. You add Stone Edge in there, that's going to hit pretty hard. He does need a setup, I think. Again, the attack power isn't there, but if he can set up, he's tanky enough that it's going to be tough for your opponent to really take him down. But yeah, he can put on a lot of pressure and set up Stealth Rocks pretty easily. One of the better, I would say, Stealth Rock users in Tier 2. Can always usually get it up. He's not going to die in one hit to most things. So, Cobalion is good. Not great, but really good. Hippowdon. I really like Hippowdon. The pure ground type I think is really good. He gets Slack Off, so you have the Bulkymon with recovery is really nice. And not only is he bulky with that recovery, he still has 112 attack with Stab, Earthquake, plus I believe he does, yeah, he gets Stone Edge. So you've got the Edgequake combo in him, is really good. He can do Toxic Whirlwind. He can run Stealth Rock. Definitely, I think, a little better Stealth Rock user probably than Cobalion. Yawn is fun if you're looking for just some shenanigans to throw at your opponent. He can be a Curse Sweeper. Obviously, his speed's not great, so you don't need it. Just run Curse. If they're not running special attackers, just buff up that attack and defense and go crazy. He does get all the Elemental Fangs. All of them. Iron Head, Crunch, Stone Edge, and Superpower. Great coverage. I couldn't believe looking over Hippowdon just how much he could do. And I would honestly love if somebody brought Hippowdon in as kind of an offensive late game sweeper. I think that would be insane and really fun. Most people will run him more bulky with the utility and just run the Stab, Earthquake, and Stone Edge to hit most things. But honestly, I kind of want to draft him and try to build a Curse set for someone that's not running a lot of special attackers. I think it'd be really good, really strong, and hard to handle if you ran Curse, Slack Off, and 2 really strong moves. You could just sit there and heal. It would be great. I think it'd be really strong. But either way, Hippowdon's good at what it does, and I think is a little more versatile than people give it credit for. Great Pokemon. Number 15, Reuniclus. We always talk about Reuniclus a lot, and it is really strong. And I think what makes it strong are the abilities. The stats are great, don't get me wrong. 110 hit points is amazing. That's really high. Even if his defense is 75, special defense 85, that hit points is what makes him bulky and pretty hard to take down. 125 special attack is great. He's slow, but the hit points helps. He's always going to get a hit in. He's got Magic Guard, Overcoat, and Regenerator. All amazing. Especially, I mean, I like Regenerator and Magic Guard a lot. Recover. You've got Recover on a bulky Pokemon. That's great. Calm Mind. He can sweep. He can run Trick Room and then sweep if you need. Great Trick Room user. Both screens. Great screen setter. Thunder Wave. Acid Armor. We saw someone use Acid Armor this season. Not with Reuniclus, but a different Pokemon, and that turned out to be really great. So I wanted to throw it on here. He gets it. Just go ham with his defense and then start hitting with that 125 special attack. He does get Focus Blast. A lot of Psychic types get that, and that's great coverage for them to hit Dark types. Energy Ball, Shadow Ball, Signal Beam, pretty good. He's slow, but has so many options. He has the bulk to handle itself. You do want to watch out for knockoffs. That's with a lot of Pokemon, but especially with like your Psychic types that aren't megas, you want to watch out for the knockoff. It's going to hit hard and it's going to take your item with it. So be wary of that, but I don't think that's too much of a downside. I think the abilities, the coverage, and recover and trick room and all that make it so great, and your opponent's going to have to really guess what you're going to bring. Are you going to bring the bulk? Are you going to bring some kind of sweeper, whether it's trick room or calm mind? Who knows? I think it's really strong, and I think it does get drafted a lot, which is good. People realize it's good, but I think it's better than a lot of people give it credit for. So, Reuniclus, good one to draft. 14, Sylveon. Great bulky fairy type. I don't think I need to really stress that. It always gets drafted. Everybody likes the Fairy Dragon Steel core, so Sylveon fits right in. It's a great cleric, one of the best. Wish and Heal Bell with a great defensive typing. Fairy is really, really strong right now. Steel and Poison are the only things really getting in your way. Offensive options, it has Calm Mind with 110 special attack and 130 special defense already. Calm Mind makes it insane. And you can run that with stored power. Really strong. Dual screens, Misty Terrain you can even throw on there, I've seen. Coverage, not great. Psyshock, Shadow Ball, it's enough. It's enough to make Sylveon pretty strong for a sweeper. You just have to make sure you take out its threats, and whatever Psychic, Shadow Ball, and Moonblast aren't going to hit. As long as you get rid of that, then Sylveon's going to be strong. But either way, great as a cleric, especially. That's its really strong role. Keep your team healthy. Good for balanced teams that are building their cores. Always a strong Pokemon. 13 is Suicune. Getting back to another bulky water type. I think it's better than Rotom Wash and Toxapex, which we've already gone over, but Calm Mind, that's the set we see the most. Scary. 115 special defense with 90 special attack and 100 hit points. Calm Mind makes Suicune hard to kill. Pure water type pretty much helps it. Helps it a lot, honestly. Doesn't add any weaknesses. A lot of times the second typing can add that. It doesn't help your coverage as much, but I think that makes Suicune really strong. It does have more fun moves. Substitute is run a lot with Calm Mind. Roar, Tailwind. I didn't know it actually got Tailwind, so that's really fun. Toxic, obviously good Toxic Stall user. It gets Air Slash, Ice Beam, and Shadow Ball for coverage, which are great. I think Air Slash especially can throw people off. Can be really great against some grass types. Ice Beam too, obviously. Its only downside, and the reason it's not my top water type for tier 2, is it doesn't have any recovery. You can put leftovers on it. You can run a rest set, but that's it. Otherwise, Suicune can be worn down pretty easily. But not too easily. Again, he has the bulk, 115 defense, special defense, and 100 hit points. Like, that's tough. But getting a Toxic on it, getting a setup against it, and hitting it pretty hard is going to do some damage and going to hurt Suicune a lot. Without recover, it's going to suffer a little bit. So definitely watch out for that if you have Suicune. Have some options in case your opponent's kind of wearing it down. But otherwise, still one of the best, easily, bulky water types. Really strong. Necrozma. I know a few people thought that this would be the number 1 pick for tier 2. Not quite. It's good. Don't get me wrong. The coverage is what makes it good. It's got Swords Dance, Auto Demise, and Calm Mind for setups, which are great. You can run Stealth Rock, Thunder Wave, Knockoff, Trick Room, Screens as utility, all really good. Morning Sun to heal. The coverage is Dragon Pulse, Outrage, Flash Cannon, Iron Head, Power Gem, Stone Edge, Earthquake, Earth Power, Heat Wave. So you kind of get versatility on whether you want to be physical or special attack. So you can throw some curveballs by going physical attack, run knockoff with Edgequake, and that's really strong. He is slow. I think the reason I didn't put him as high was mainly the speed, because he's got so much sweep potential. If you get an Autotomize off, that can help a lot, I think. But I just feel like there's better sets you want to run, and if you're outsped, he's going to get worn down. His bulk is decent, so that's good. I was just kind of sitting here thinking about Necrozma. He's kind of in the middle for me, which, again, he made number 12, almost top 10, which is good, and he gets drafted every time, and there's a reason. He has versatility. The versatility is good in draft. I just think as long as you're able to outspeed Necrozma, you're going to pretty much be able to handle what he's got. Guessing his moves can be a little trickier, though, just because he gets so much. So definitely a Pokemon to always watch out for and prep for, but he's harder to prep for because of the coverage. So really good Pokemon. Togekiss almost made top 10, got pushed out by something we added in late, but a really strong, bulky fairy. Obviously, he is the troll of competitive Pokemon. Serene Grace, Air Slash. Everyone knows it, everyone hates it, but it's good. With 80 speed, you can easily outspeed Togekiss to try to get around it, but if you're not able to, he's going to get some flinches and it's going to hurt. He has good bulk. Pretty decent bulk, especially with his typing. He's tough to take down. Good special attack. He's a good cleric. He gets Heal Bell and Wish, so you can run him as a cleric. Also, you can run Tailwind, Screens, Defog, and Roost, so all the utility options are there. Makes him honestly a little better than Sylveon as far as a bulky fairy. That's why I put him a little farther up. Good coverage, too. Heat Waver, Fire Blast, Aura Sphere, obviously. A lot of people run that as coverage for steel types. Psychic or Psyshock and Grass Knot. He has so many options to be able to prep a little bit for your opponent, which is really nice. And just a little more versatile, honestly, than Sylveon. As far as what you can do with it. It's not just a Serene Grace flincher. You can run Cleric, you can run Tailwind or Defog or Roost or run Screens. It's a pretty versatile Pokemon, which makes it really strong. Just about made top 10. Not quite, but now we are going to begin our top 10. The first one being Azelf. This one might be a little bit of a surprise because we just went over Necrozma, but what I think puts Azelf a little higher is the speed. With that speed, it doesn't need a Scarf. You're going to outspeed most things. He has so much utility, so much coverage, just like Uxie and Mesprit. He's got insane coverage and just moves it can use, which just puts him so high on my list. I couldn't believe it. Stealth Rock, obviously, that's really, really strong. Knockoff and Taunt and Screens. U-Turn. U-Turn is really strong. That puts him, again, I don't think Necrozma had U-Turn, so that kind of gives Azelf an edge for me as far as a good psychic offense. Calm Mind, really strong for sweeping if you're going the special route. Dazzling Gleam, Energy Ball, Fire Blast, all the elemental punches. Power Up Punch, Signal Beam, Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt. So all great coverage. I do think his special moves seem a little stronger, but if you want better coverage, you're going to want to go for physical, and that's harder because you don't get as good a setup. You have to run Power Up Punch to try to set up if you need to, but I mean with 125 attack you don't need it. It's nice, but you don't need it, so you can run a whole bunch of coverage and be ready for just about anything. And obviously Levitate, such a good ability, one of the best abilities in the game. Avoiding Earthquakes is so nice. It gives you a nice Pokemon to switch in when you're expecting that Earthquake. Super, super nice. Yeah, so all those reasons that I listed are why I had to put it above Necrozma. I compared the two a lot. And I just think Azelf just has a little bit more going for it. Just a little. So it gets the edge for me. Azelf, number 10. So now moving further into our top 10, number 9 Volcarona. This was a tier 1 season 1, never got picked. Definitely not as strong in tier 1 because of that rock weakness, but in tier 2, Volcarona shines. It's one of the most effective setup sweepers in the game, period. Are there a few that are better? Maybe, probably, but it's one of the best. I would put it as top 5 for setup sweepers. It's insane. Quiver Dance just puts Volcarona in another league. It has Roost to heal. It has Defog if you need it. Honestly, you should be running a different Defog user because you don't want to put Volcarona in on Stealth Rock. But you can use the Defog to get rid of spikes if you need for other teammates. Tailwind is there. I've seen some people run Fire Spin to trap. He does get U-turn. Not used too much because people more just use it as a sweeper, but I'm just putting it out there that you can run some fun sets on Volcarona to throw him off. Will-O-Wisp, obviously really strong. Coverage, you get Giga Drain. Giga Drain is good enough to take out the water types. It's super common because it also gives Volcarona that little boost in health if you need it to survive a hit. Psychic's not quite as common, but if you need it, it's there. Otherwise, you're mostly relying on hidden power to hit what you need to hit, which is good enough. Bug Buzz and Fire Blast hits a lot, or Fiery Dance hits a lot. If you're able to draft Firium Z, that's amazing on Volcarona. It's such a nuke. Pretty one-dimensional overall, but as I listed, there are options, and because it has those other options along with what it does, I think it's worth a top 10 spot. And even without those, just its overall offensive capabilities are so strong. So Volcarona gets number 9 on my list. Number 8 is one of the Pokemon that we are voting for to possibly move to tier 1. I'm not 100% sold on the move to tier 1. I'm still thinking about it myself, but I know GBA and a lot of other leagues run it in tier 1 just because it's really an offensive powerhouse. And I would honestly put it, as I put here, a contestant for best offensive typing. Rock fighting is so good offensively. Defensively, it's got some issues, but it has 108 speed, 129 attack, with close combat and Stone Edge as just really strong stab moves. The stab in that is just insane. He's going to hit hard, and Terrakion is going to kill. When he clicks that button, he's going to get a kill somewhere. Choice is always great. You can also run Swords Dance Rock Polish. Really good offensive setup if you need it. Stealth Rock, always great. He does get Taunt. He's a fast Taunt user. I've run Taunt. Again, I run a Gym League as a Rock type user, so I use Terrakion a lot. I know what he can do, and I have run Taunt, and it works. It's really nice when you suspect that someone's going to be setting up or using utility moves. Taunt can shut that down. It's really nice. He does get Earthquake, so you've got the Edgequake combo. Iron Head is the second most popular, I would say. It hits fairies, which is one of Terrakion's problems if they're running a bulky fairy. You can also run Poison Jab if you need that instead of Iron Head for their fairies. Iron Head in general I think is better, but Poison Jab will hit like Bulu harder. X-Scissor I have run against Psychic types when I need to, so that's really strong. And then Zen Headbutt, it's there. If it gives you the edge, I would run Calx. It might hit stuff like Mega Venusaur a little harder. That might be a little bit of a problem for Terrakion, so that can be some good tech there. So I think the coverage, while he doesn't have a lot, it hits what you need to hit. But overall, Edgequake plus Close Combat is going to hit everything, at least neutral. It's really good. And if you're not choiced, then you have the options to switch those around. So I know a lot of people were wondering why we were thinking it for tier 1, and it's honestly not just because GBA has it tier 1. When I look at Terrakion, I really do think, as far as offensive typing, it's crazy good. It's really strong. All his stab moves are going to hit really hard, so that's why he's one to think about, and hopefully what I've said people will really take into consideration when they're voting, kind of thinking where to put him. Honestly though, I don't know what I'm going to vote yet. I'm torn as to where I think Terrakion belongs, but definitely makes my top 10 as a tier 2. So number 7 is Milotic. This is one of the best bulky waters in draft, period. Which surprises a lot of people because it's an RU Pokemon, but it's so good. It's really proved itself too. It shows, it just has so much power, especially running Marvel scale with like Flame Orb. When your bulky water type has Recover and it can't be toxic, that's tough for a lot of people to deal with. And the Marvel scale, obviously, it's really good ability. Recover puts it above a lot of others. The Toxic Stall is real. It's good. Haze, stopping setup sweepers. Milotic can just stall teams out. Coverage, I don't think it's a Dragon Pulse and Ice Beam. Milotic is not an offensive Pokemon overall. That's not what it does. It can run those when you need it to, but you're going to run Scald most of the time. Net some burns, try to wear things down, or use Toxic to wear everything down. What it lacks in coverage, it just makes up for in sheer survivability. Milotic is really hard to kill, and it's proven that it's one of the hardest things to kill easily in draft. It's just a monster. Unless you have really strong physical hits and you don't get the burn from the Scald, then Milotic's just going to sit you out, and that's just really strong, and that's really good. If you're looking, because everybody wants a bulky water, Milotic is easily one of the best. It's better than, I would pick it over some tier 1s probably, but really good. It definitely belongs in tier 2 though, but it's really strong. Number 6, we're going with Hydreigon. Hydreigon is the best dragon in tier 2. He is very good, and a lot of people know him as a special sweeper. One of the best offensive Pokemon in draft. You throw a Scarf, you throw Choice Specs, because he has 98 speed, he's fast enough. But you throw other items on there, and he'll be okay. But I don't think people realize just what else Hydreigon has. He's got Defog, and he's got Roost, and he's got 90 bulk on defense and special defense and 92 hit points. Like, he can be tanky, he can take hits, he has U-turn also. That's super strong. That's always good for getting a little momentum going. Levitate, obviously, I've said it a million times, great ability. You don't need anything else besides Levitate. Like, that's just so good. Avoid the quakes, come in, you can start rolling out some hits, or, you know, if you need to defog, if you need to roost, Hydreigon can do it. His coverage, always really good. Fire Blast, Flash Cannon, hits fairies, because Hydreigon doesn't like fairies at all. Earth Power, Focus Blast, Signal Beam, Surf. And even though he has that 4 times weakness to fairy, I just think Hydreigon is a powerhouse. Really strong. I think people need to start using him a little more. I don't think he's seen too much use in our drafts. A couple times I remember seeing him. I just don't think he gets as many kills as I think he should, and I think he's capable of. So that doesn't mean he's not amazing. He easily makes number 6 on my list, and I stick with that. He's strong, very strong, and has options. Doesn't have to just run Choice Scarf. So definitely a Pokemon to always watch out for and prep for when it's coming against you. All right, number 5. Here we go. I talk about Starmie a lot, and people know that, and I was really upset that nobody in our Origins Draft League drafted Starmie. Starmie is a tier 1 in a lot of other leagues. GBA as one example, and I know we're not GBA, and we do things a little differently, and that's fine. I like that we're different. And I'm not thinking that Starmie needs to be tier 1. Definitely not yet, because nobody wants to use it. But it's so good. It is great offensive utility. It's a faster rapid spinner when you need it. I mean, when you think about the best rapid spinners, it's Starmie and Excadrill. Easily the top 2. And a lot of people would say that Starmie is probably better at rapid spinning than Excadrill, and I might agree with that. I think it's really good. It's faster. You can send it in and rapid spin really quick. Obviously, as far as coverage, you've got Thunderbolt and Ice Beam, which the Bolt Beam combo is scary and hits most things. You've got Scald, Hydro Pump, Surf, whatever you need. Analytic and Natural Cure are just great. The thing about Starmie is with those two abilities, you can either run the offensive set, you can run an offensive spinner, or you throw Natural Cure in there and you have something to soak up status, and you can run him fairly defensively. He's got 85 defense, 85 special defense. It's decent enough. A lot of times when I run Starmie, I will run Assault Vest. I've run Assault Vest Starmie. I don't think it's bad. It really helps you tank the special attacks when you need to. You can take a lot of hits with Starmie with an Assault Vest. I just think his utility overall, you get Thunderwave too. I've run Thunderwave. Like, just the utility of Starmie is so strong. I think the biggest problem is people prefer their bulkier water types to something like Starmie. And honestly, like, I picked Starmie Season 1 because I knew how good it was, and it proved itself. It did really well for me, and I enjoyed it. I didn't need the bulkiest water type. Starmie's got bulk enough. He can switch into the hits I need it to. He can spin everything out that I need him to. He's got Natural Cure, so if your opponent's running Toxic Spikes, he can switch in, get the Toxic, spin them away, switch out, and he's healed. That's super strong. Maybe not quite as good as Excadrill because he's immune to that in that respect, but I still think Starmie's utility makes it slightly better and really strong. Not going to move it to Tier 1, obviously. If it's not getting picked in Tier 2 yet, people just don't seem to realize it, and I think people need to pick it that know how to use it really well and really show us more of what Starmie is capable of, and that will push its usage up some more, and then we can talk about it more. But I really think people need to look more into Starmie. It's really strong. Really, really strong. I'm done talking about Starmie now. Alright, number 4, Buzzwole. This is one that we are moving. And I'm torn on the move. I like that we're putting it somewhere where it's going to get picked. But I think Buzzwole's maybe a little too strong for a Tier 2. Look at the stats. Sorry. Look at the stats. Just look. Look at the stats. That's insane. He's a little slow. But I mean, as far as physical defense, as a slower sweeper, a bulky sweeper, like, Buzzwole's insane. And he gets Beast Boost. Obviously, Beast Boost is a great ability. Bulk Up is a really common set. It's like Curse, but without the speed drops. So, really strong. You can do Power Up Punch, Fell Stinger, I could see. He can get out of hand with a setup. And again, you don't even need a setup. If he gets a kill, he gets Beast Boosted. He's going to raise his attack every time. Buzzwole, for those of you that don't use him very much, has Roost. That's really good. For a bulky Pokemon with something like Bulk Up, you can Roost. Huh. Taunt, Toxic, if you want to build a more physical, defensive like set, but he doesn't need it. The coverage, Dual Chop or Outrage for a dragon move. He's got the Edgequake combo. Iron Head for fairies. Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, Poison Jab. He's literally just missing a fire move, which he's got Earthquake, so I don't know if he really needs a good fire move, because that hits steel types, most of them, just not Skarmory. But you can run Thunder Punch for Skarmory or Celesteela. I do think Buzzwole's a little too good for Tier 2, but I am excited to try him there. I think we'll try him one season, and I think we'll probably discuss it again. And with his move, we are moving Heracross down to Tier 3, which probably might make my list in Tier 3 if it was in there, most likely. Heracross is pretty strong. But putting Heracross and Buzzwole in the same tier just doesn't make sense. Buzzwole is easily better. Easily. The stats are insane. So, he's slower. Maybe that keeps Buzzwole in check. We'll find out. I hands down believe that Buzzwole will be one of the first Tier 2s drafted next season if we keep him there. Easily. Ahead of maybe my top 3. But I want to see how he does, because I do want to see him get picked. I like Buzzwole. And in Tier 1, I do believe he's probably never going to get picked. As good as he can be, there's better things. So, I'm excited to see how it does. I really do think he's going to shine in Tier 2, and then we'll have to decide if he's too good or not. Alright, so number 3, Superior. Not putting it at number 1, even though I do think... I mean, I am 100% for the Tier 1 shift for Superior. It's good, and what it does is maybe a little too good. With 113 speed and a contrary Leaf Storm, like, you're going to switch Superior in on something that you know is going to switch out. And even if it resists Leaf Storm, you don't care. You hit it with that Leaf Storm, it does a little bit of damage, and you've got that special attack boost. Now you have 113 speed, +1 on your special, or no, +2. Sorry, +2 on your special attack. You've done chip damage to get rid of a focus sash if they have it, and now you run your coverage, which is going to be your hidden power. And as long as you've predicted well enough, your hidden power is going to kill whatever they send in. I think Superior easily gets out of hand. He also has Defog, Glare, and Knockoff as utility, which is great. Defog is always super strong. Knockoff, always great to throw in there. Glare is fun. I'd like to see that more on Superior sets, especially if you know people are running Scarf users, then you run a Glare when they switch in instead, and now you're faster. Now you can start doing a little more damage. This season, Superior is just up there on the kill list. It's been doing so good. It's not the number 1, I know, but it's doing really, 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 really well. And I think a little too good. And I think it's harder to counter than my top 2, maybe, even though I think the top 2 are a little more versatile, which is why I put them higher than Superior. Superior, I personally believe, does belong in Tier 1, and I think it's going to be fine in Tier 1 and probably still get picked. It's a great offensive Pokemon. Really great. The speed and contrary sell it. It's good. Hopefully people take what I say into consideration, but think for yourselves and decide, does this thing really belong in Tier 2? Really strong Pokemon, though. Easily in my top 5 here. Number 2, we've got Mamoswine. Mamoswine is so strong. Always goes really early in Tier 2. I don't think he needs to be in Tier 1. I don't think he's that good. But his offensive typing is good. He gets Edgequake. He has Priority Ice with 130 attack. Is great. He's a great Dragon counter. Great counter against Landorus. Stuff like that. He gets Stealth Rocks, and he can run screens. Fun fact, Mamoswine gets both screens. Thick Fat means he has no fire weakness. Gone. Boop. And he's going to tank any ice hits, obviously. That just adds to its bulky offense potential. He does always make the top kill list. He can be a little hard to handle in draft. I do think people just need to tech a little better for Mamoswine and really look at what he can do and how best to beat him. Overall, his defenses aren't that good. His special defense especially. Like, you can run... Like, Mamoswine is going to get walled by a lot of water types. If you're running physically defensive water types, then Mamoswine's going to get walled by it. So think about that kind of stuff when you're coming up against Mamoswine. He's not as hard to take down, I think, as Superior, but he's threatening, very threatening. Very good. And I honestly, Mamoswine's probably my favorite Tier 2. I love Mamoswine. I haven't gotten to use it yet because it always gets sniped so quickly on round 2 of the draft, but he's good, and that's why. So now, my number 1, I don't know if anybody guessed it. I think some people thought Mamoswine, some people thought Superior, some thought Necrozma, but my number 1 pick is Gliscor. So, obviously with Mamoswine, Gen 4 got those new evolutions, and a lot of them are really strong. The thing about Gliscor, its stats are great. It doesn't need the special attack. I'm glad. Its special attack being lower just means everything else could be higher, which is good. He could do so much. He can do everything. Just look at the different moves it gets. Look at this. Like, you can get Defog. It's a Defogger that's not weak to Stealth Rock, and it's a flying type that's not weak to Stealth Rock. The only other thing that really does that is Skarmory. And Landorus. But Gliscor, as far as a Tier 2, is a bargain. Really good. You also get Stealth Rock. So you not only defog, then you can put up your own Stealth Rocks. You can Roost. He's got heals with his great defense. U-turn. Always, I bring up U-turn with just about everybody, and knockoff. I bring all those up. Those are great. He gets both. Swords Dance. You can set up with him too. You don't have to go defensive. You can go offensive. Poison Heal is obviously OP. That's what a lot of people run. If you're going against someone with Hippo or Tyranitar, or you have those yourself, Sand Veil can be very useful. We do allow that. Abilities that boost evasion are fine, just not moves. So you can run Sand Veil Gliscor if you wanted. I think Poison Heal's better, but you also get Edgequake combo, obviously. That's really all you need. But you get Knockoff, Aqua Tail, Poison Jab, all the Elemental Fangs, Sky Uppercut, and Brick Break. Brick Break, I don't bring up enough, but whenever you're worried about a screen setter, Brick Break's always nice to bring. If you can't taunt, Brick Break. So, yeah, I mean, you just look at all of this, and Gliscor's really good, guys. Gliscor's really, really strong, and it can do everything. He can be bulky, he can be utility, he can be a setup sweeper, he can just put on offensive pressure with Stab Earthquake. Stab Earthquakes are always good. So with all of that, I just think Gliscor is hands down the number one for me. Just the versatility is there, the stats are good, the speed tier is good. A Swords Dance turns him into a real threat. So Gliscor number one easily. I don't think people guessed that, but he should be up there on anyone's list. Gliscor is great. So sadly, we did have to cut some from our list here. These are the ones that I really did consider. I know there's some on here that people probably really wanted on the list. I just want to throw it out that I considered all of these. I had to think through. I had to make cuts. When I added Buzzwole kind of at the last second, I did have to move Kyurem out. Kyurem was 25. Kyurem's really strong. Has a lot of coverage. He just lacks that physical ice move that a lot of people really want the Kyurems to get, but that would make him really strong and probably a tier 1. But otherwise, he just happened to get cut. But, I mean, Gyarados is a good Intimidate user. Arcanine's good with Intimidate. Cresselia has been proving itself as a nice tank. Crawdaunt usually is a fantastic cleaner at the end of games. Breloom I already brought up. Staraptor almost made my list. I really considered it because it's one of my favorites. But it just didn't quite make the cut. But Intimidate on it is also really great. And Reckless Sweepers. Staraptor is really good. Alakazam's proved itself on our recent season, so that's good. Magnezone is new to the tier, so I'm kind of skeptical as to where it would fall, but I definitely considered it. I just didn't quite think it made the list, but it's strong. It's a really good steel type. Stack Attack has been doing great. I think it's been doing great because people aren't prepping well for it because I don't think it's that big of a threat, and it is. Tornadus is strong. Gengar is strong. Sweeper as well, and Nihilego a little outclassed by the other beasts in the set, but it's still good. Yeah, so these are all the ones I kind of considered. So if you didn't see any of these on the list, just know that I did think about them. So next time we'll get into tier 1. I'll try to make that video a little quicker than this one. I apologize for the time. I'm already working, I promise you, I'm already working right now on tier 1 video to try and get that to you guys. And this is where the adventure begins. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video as much as the other ones. Hopefully it brought a little insight for you as far as tier. And helps make your picks a little better for the next season for those of you that might have struggled a little bit. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.